Alright, so I'll just do a quick run through of some of the tools that we use and even what some of the workflow looks like for doing digital communications at Cleveland. This is pretty much the stuff we would do in a typical month. Because of the tools we use, it's pretty much, spend a bit of time queuing it up once a month, and then it sort of, some of it runs on its own and the rest doesn't. So first of all, we'll start with MailChimp. So this is just the standard MailChimp dashboard that you get when you log in that shows you a bit of information about engagements with campaigns and whatever. So what we'll do is I'll just quickly run through what you would do if you were starting a new campaign, as well as some of the things that MailChimp gives you that make it easy to administer lists. So for example, this is an email that we sent just last week, and you can see there the number of opens, the number of clicks that it's had, and the bounce rate and how many people unsubscribed from it, and so on and so forth. So that's useful to know. You can also get other fun things like, how long after it was sent did people open it. Generally, you're probably wanting to be sending stuff around lunchtime, but that's going to depend on your audience. And you can also see the top links that everyone clicked on. So there's that. The other thing that, and you can actually drill into any of those analytics that you want. The other thing that's worth noting is when we posted this on our, when we emailed this out to everyone, it actually automatically pushed onto our Facebook page. So what we can see if we scroll back down to when it was posted, when it was sent, sorry, email to everyone, it actually automatically was posted onto our Facebook page, not in any particularly special way, but just as a link where people could click on it to read the full contents of the email. There it is. So it was posted last week. So you can actually post just a link. You can actually choose what sort of summary goes in there, or you could go in and edit it later if you'd had it wrong. But anyway, if you click on that, it'll take people to a version of that they can view in their browser, which also allows people to subscribe, view past issues and whatnot. And this is just a snapshot of what we sent last week. Sorry, it was ending and starting dates for everything that we did. We had all our social media info over there, as well as Spotify, service times, contact details. We did a once annual pitch for people to ask to consider supporting us. Families thing we're doing, free resource, day camp leaders, and our date claimer. And at the bottom of every email, actually, we include the Taking Faith Home resource as well, that people can sign up to. And when people subscribe to that, it's all done automatically through MailChimp. What will actually happen is that these Taking Faith Home things that get posted to our website automatically, like they were scheduled at the start of the year, sorry, the start of the lectionary year actually. So last November, the whole year was just imported into WordPress in one go. Took about 2 hours, I think, from start to finish, and they just get posted and emailed out every week automatically to those who opt in. And we also print a copy of that and distribute it with our physical stuff as well. But there are people in our church who every single week are subscribed to the electronic version of that and will actually download and engage with it every single time. So the other thing that's worth noting actually while I'm clicking around in what we sent is that this little date claimer right here, it on its own probably over the course of a year gets more clicks than everything else combined. It's the reminder of what's on. So just something that people can print and stick on their fridge. And this year actually we added some of our weekly stuff on the back. So it's not amazing in terms of production value. If you've got some creative people, you can make something that looks better, but it's clean. It has the dates that people most often ask us about in youth and families, and that's been a helpful resource for our people, especially in terms of how they tend to use it. So the other thing to have a look at is in campaigns. So what I'll do is, campaigns are what these emails are called, because MailChimp is a marketing tool. So mass emails you send are talked about as a campaign, just like an advertising campaign. And what we typically do month to month is actually just replicate the previous one in MailChimp, and I'll just quickly run through what we would do now. So we still, for our youth and families email list, tend to send most things to the entire group, but you can have segments that you've created. So if, for example, we've got people who go to mainly music, the people who've opted into taking Faith home, just different lists that we've imported in from time to time, or different ways that we've broken up the list. So, we might send something out, for example, only to people who do youth group, or only people who have kids in the church, or people who've opted in to know about, I don't know, Men's Shed or whatever. So, but yeah, for youth and families, this is our once a month catch-all, just for everyone. So we would say we just want to send that to the entire list. We then can set just the basic information about the email. So, what we want the campaign name to be called. So I'll just do this now, save me time later. April. Email subject. You need to think through at least what you're going to put in there so people have enough info to know whether they want to open it. And basically, that'll give you a snapshot about what's in there. With the from name, I would suggest also including the name of a person in there, not just the church, but actually who in the church is kind of being the public face to this message. And the from email address is where it's going to look like it's come from for people. I would again suggest this is an important thing to try and keep this from email address consistent with your newsletter, and not just such and such at gmail.com, but the kind of address that's going to stay current for a while, because we get a lot of people who will initiate contact with the church. Maybe they haven't had anything to do with us for ages, and they'll have just hit reply on a youth and families email from maybe even 12 months ago sometimes. So don't have this email coming from an email address that isn't one that you monitor, because people will use it to contact you. And as I've said a number of times, I often, when we send these youth and families emails, get a bunch of people on the same day who will just hit reply and just ask whatever unrelated question they happen to have. Also, this is the tracking stuff. So, we track opens, clicks, and we also tie it in with Google Analytics, so we can actually see what sort of web traffic we're getting as a result of the youth and families email in terms of our website. So we can actually see, people who've been connecting with our website and how they've been doing it based on that. So that can be helpful information to know. You might have crafted a fantastic email and then find that people get to the page that you want them to get to on your website and don't stay there very long and leave. So we can see here that the average view session on this was 31 seconds, and we could probably even drill in and see what sort of pages they were looking at. But anyway, it doesn't tell you like precisely who was doing what, but anyway, it can be good to know in terms of where things might not be working. But anyway, what we'd do, we'd set, I'll just leave that blank because I'll fix it later, in April, and then we'd just say, oh yes, so here you go, auto post to Facebook after sending as well, so that you can choose to post to any page that you administer on Facebook. If you're keen on Twitter, you can also automatically have it go to Twitter, and you can choose what description goes there. So that's all very straightforward. The template, we'll just get placeholder for now. Template I'll click through anyway. Once you're replicating a campaign, it'll actually skip this template page, but we just basically pick one template and just run with it. Oh, it skipped it already. Anyway, so this is sort of how it works. So you can see the pages are made up of these little like building blocks, and what I say to people is if you can use Microsoft Word, you can use MailChimp, because basically you drag and drop content in just like that, and then you sort of click on the little doodad and you can actually type, text goes here. And mostly what we'd do from month to month is, delete the stuff. We tend not to run things multiple times just to encourage people to actually read rather than just hit the stuff they've already seen and switch off. So we'll get rid of that. The other thing that should be mentioned is this is also sometimes a really good opportunity to update the website and update all your other stuff and plan your other communication. So usually when this email comes together, that's the time when all the other supporting stuff comes together to make sure that all works. The other thing that we've found that's worthwhile to do is actually to repost individually all of the content that we post in this email as a body on our Facebook page, over the following month, just, once a week, just because we have different people connecting with what we do on Facebook than we do with this email. So for example, we'd have a Facebook post that would pop up that would just be pretty much this exact text copied and pasted. Likewise, we'd plonk a Facebook post down for this, but rather than just having 8 posts all on the same day, we sort of drip feed them out. So you've already done the work, you've already made the content, you might as well distribute it multiple times through multiple channels. Daycamp Leader Rego, we'd probably leave that there as is, and I'll add a bit more info, but generally leave it. Generally we leave these two there just all of the time. Haven't worked out yet whether we want to add our little donate button just there afterwards, but probably not for now. And there you go. Once you've done that, you actually go through to confirm, and it'll ask you to double check all of your information. It'll tell you if there's any other things you need to do. It'll also convert the email for you into plain text, which is nice. So even if people are viewing on like a really old email client or really old whatever, it'll actually just convert the whole thing for you automatically into just text, straight text. So that's nice. I'm not going to hit send because that would send to everyone, but that's pretty much the process from start to finish. And it takes, probably somewhere around 2 hours to do once a month. But I will say that 3/4 of that 2 hours is usually pulling together or updating all of the other digital resources that go into this. So for example, making sure that the registration for day camp is ready to go, or making sure that your forms and flyers and information are correct for all your other stuff, and that the Facebook event that it's linking to is correct, and just all of that kind of stuff. So the actual composition itself of the email doesn't take very long. We'll forward that off to someone to proofread, and then just hit send usually, and off we go. The other clever thing about this, so there's a good example of a little event we made just for that one. And the thing is, people tend not to use our events to RSVP. It's just to help get some more exposure to what we're doing. The other thing I'll mention while I'm here is send a test email. So before you hit send, it's good to send a test email, and you can actually see here we've got a few other people who are users on the account. Now these two people, the church administrator and Lynette, they're both editors, so they have the ability to add comments and corrections and things and collaborate, because MailChimp allows you to do this in a collaborative sort of way. It doesn't just have to be one person making the whole thing, but in fact you can have a whole team of people. Some people who have the ability to edit, some who have the ability to send, others who have the ability to approve, and so on and so forth. So that's the email list. One of the really good things about MailChimp as well is that it's extremely easy to import people into it. You can literally just copy and paste. There we go. So what we'll do, so you can just literally copy and paste straight out of Excel, or straight out of other tools that you have. So that's very easy and very straightforward. You can also have a sign-up form, which is just a website that people can go to that will allow them to sign up, and you can have pop-ups embedded and tap Facebook. So it can do all of these things for you, which is quite nice. So that's tablet form. See, that's something we haven't done before actually, but we perhaps we'll do next year at our Christmas light. But anyway, you can sort of have these forms that you can just it gives you a link. You can just drag and drop the things that you want to be in the form, and then if people go to it, it'll just work. So even if you have no idea what you're doing, you can actually just put the form together, link to it on your web page, and bang, people can sign up. They can opt in to extra bits and so on and so forth. Um, the other thing that's worth mentioning with MailChimp, so after every time we do like day camp or some thing, or periodically with mainly music, or every time we do that, we'll actually import our people into it. The other thing now is that our church management software um, integrates with MailChimp, so we can actually sign people into MailChimp directly through this. So, um, dum dum dum. Oh, that's nice. That's excellent new features. Fantastic. I'll make a reminder to do them. But anyway, um, so for example, if we go into me, because I don't really care if you see all my information, um, we can, as a church, also just manage people's sign-ups to things using this. So we can actually, sign people up to Cleveland UC Youth and Families email. So this subscriptions thing here actually talks directly to MailChimp. So if people update their email address in our church management software, it automatically can update that in MailChimp. And for example, if we get a family that comes and has a baptism or a new member of the church or whatever, we usually just ask and sign them up to that stuff just through Elvanto. So we don't have to tell people to do 5 things, but we can just connect them in that way, and that's very good. So while I'm on the content topic of Elvanto, this is the other thing that we use. So what we will often do is, in terms of email, we can do targeted emails. So we might say, for example, I'll just click advanced before anyone's info loads. Whoops. We would, I'll just get rid of all of that. So let's just stick with first name. So, we might just say, I want to see everyone who is in, let's say everyone who goes to the 9:45 service, as well as parents with, actually let's do youth group, that's a better way. So, say I wanted to say something had to change for youth group, what we would do is say I want to see everyone who's in youth group, we'll just get 9:45 out of there, and also say parents in youth group. We'll say any. So, and then hit search, and then we can actually just get a list of people who fall into that group. Now this does rely on us actually maintaining our data well. So there's a group of people, and then we can actually just through Elvanto say contact, and either send an email to them saying blah 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 blah. I've got a template that I have that has my footer already in it, as well as a Google Analytics tracking thing, and then we would just type in the email here, blah 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 blah. That's sort of how we do that, and it's handy because you can send an email to people. It'll tell you who you won't be able to contact through that medium. You can also send a text. So, for example, if we selected show me everyone who's in our 3 morning services, and I want to send them a text, you can do that, and this just connects to SMS broadcast. Or if you want to go old school, you can send a letter. So you can actually say, I want to send a letter for everyone who has only an address. Bam. And it'll actually print out for you, little label stickers, and letters and PDFs and stuff that you can just print. So it's actually quite easy to work out how to hit people in the mediums that we have information about them very easily, and not have to guess and go, oh, who was it who wasn't on email? Oh, that person. So that's how we use that. But we use this as well for our, or we're going to be using this for all of our event registrations as well, which is great because we actually don't even need to worry about importing stuff after the fact. It just will pipe straight in there, which is fantastic. So that's what we use. In terms of social, so that's a little bit about how we use that. We use this probably weekly or daily in terms of how we work as a church. Really recommend it for any church with more than 50 members to get a decent church management tool. Anyway, so the phrase we use, it helps us to see value people, not numbers, and it helps us to see the community rather than just see a crowd. We, for our social media, use SmarterQ at the moment, just experimenting. And when I say we, I mean me. Um, so that's the tool, and how it works. It's clever. We were using Buffer for a little while. I was using Buffer for um, that Ignite Children's Ministry Conference, and this is good because you can actually have multiple categories of posts, and you can have posts that are evergreen, which means that they'll just get reposted and go into a queue. So what we're having a go at the moment, we're trying something a bit different in terms of social media, which is to try and be a lot more deliberate in the kind of stuff that we publicise in that space, and just even the regularity with which we post. So we've got several categories of stuff. You know, every morning at 5 a.m. a sort of little daily encouraging faith-related thing will pop up, and you can actually have a look at our schedule and see what we've got. So automatically, something daily inspiration will post. You know, at 11:30 on Wednesdays, for example, partner promotion will happen. Service opportunities on Tuesdays. You know, how can we pray for you on Wednesdays to line up for our prayer meeting? Youth and families on Thursday. Regular activity, self-promotion on Friday. Just because, again, it's not always, we can't assume that people who are seeing our content on Facebook have clicked through to our website. We also post information about what's coming up at Sunday school, and on Sunday we'll do some external faith resources. So last week that was a link to a Spotify playlist, and I suspect it probably will be in an ongoing sort of way. So we're using that. But the idea is to say, what does it look like to be giving people encouragement and faith each day, to be asking for prayer. Hey, how can we pray for you as a church, and helping people know what we do. The little pretty images we use are just from this site here, Sunday Social, and it's like $6 a month just for an image, and that takes about half an hour to queue up the whole month, a month in advance. So they're not particularly substantial, but you know, we're just giving this a go. We just started this year. It doesn't take a lot of time and money to do, so yeah, and some people really do enjoy that. A lot of people probably don't notice, so that's that. The other thing that I'll just have to show you is insights. So with a Facebook page, as opposed to a individual account or a closed group, you get insights. So you can actually see how many views and things are happening on your page. You can actually see which posts are getting good engagements, how many people have, what reach is, you know, how many people are viewing. You can also see you know, what time your people tend to be on Facebook. So looking at this, most of our people are on Facebook at 6 o'clock at night. That's the busiest time. And you know, 8 a.m. normally is quite good as well. But you can sort of see our people generally are on later in the day. And I would suggest any one targeting youth and families, you'll find they're on quite early in the morning, usually, you know, down here, and then later at night. And that changes each day of the week. So there you go. You can see it's quite pronounced on work days, and I would suggest that yeah, this will depend on the demographic of your community, but it's worth having a look at in terms of when you post, so you can sort of see what was getting mileage and what wasn't. So you know, you can see a post relating to our church camp had a bunch of people clicking, liking, and viewing it. The container that we did to Fiji as well. You know, I just grabbed my phone and just posted that just on the spot, simply because we had no photos of it. So look, they're not masterpieces, but you know, people liked that because it's helping to tell the stories of what we're doing. Because again, this is the kind of stuff that often would happen in between Sundays and people wouldn't even know. So anyway, that's the sort of analytics that you can get, and you can see all sorts of things. And I would really encourage you to have a look at the kinds of things that you're posting to see whether any of it is connecting or not, because especially if you're running paid advertising, you know, you need to pay attention. Is anyone listening? The other interesting stuff you can also see is when you look at people, you know, who likes your page, and you can see, oh, surprise, surprise, you know, 80% women. Funnily enough, you know, in the 35 to 44 page, and for most churches I've been with, it has looked similar to this. And that's not trying to make any kind of value judgment. It just is. Um, it tells you, where everyone lives, and you can also see not only who are your fans, but who are you reaching. So, um, see, what's interesting is you can see that even though we don't have people who've liked our page a lot in terms of men, in terms of where it's actually reaching and who's actually seeing our content, it's actually disproportionate. So we're reaching a lot more people than actually like our page. So reach means people who are seeing our content. Particularly for men, and even here you can see, there's not even close to the amount. So it's worth having a look at who you're reaching, not just who likes your page, especially if your page has been liked by a whole bunch of people who don't even live in the community. Like, please do us a favor and don't like our Facebook page for Cleveland if you don't, live within half an hour of us, because it just screws up our analytics. But yeah, so that's those are some of the good insights that are good to have, and so that's good. The other good thing with Facebook is that, like most modern web tools, you can delegate different levels of authority to all sorts of different people. So you can have people who are editors, you can have people who are contributors, you can have people who write content but don't have authority to post. I would suggest that it is important to have thought through beforehand what you will post on your page officially, links from other pages or crazy rants about whatever. Like, really be aware of the fact that you are sort of representing the church with whoever gets to do that. The Synod has also produced some helpful social media guidelines that can help people to think about that. So that's good. I'll just show you quickly Google Analytics. So this is something that allows you to see what's happening on our website. So again, you can see, what are people generally viewing on our page? What pages are they hitting? You can see what's the bounce rate, and the bounce rate is people who just arrive and then leave straight away. And stuff that can be really helpful is even to see the behavior flow. So you can say, generally, what are people doing on our page? So we can see that a lot of people just land on the straight normal page. That's it, just there. And then, 67% of them drop off, and then the rest of them go on to some of these different pages like congregation notes, ministry team, weekly events, youth. So you can actually see how people are clicking through your website as well. So that can be interesting. And the other thing that Google allows you to do is it can give you just an overview about demographics of the kinds of people who are hitting your web page. So you can see, for example, our web page is not hitting the same demographic as our Facebook. Our web page is primarily hitting our older members of the church. Or actually, sorry, not I wouldn't say older members of the church, but older people. So you can sort of see that. Hang on a minute, we still have it. There we go. So you can see that what is a small segment for Facebook is a very large segment on the website, which is important to consider in terms of, I guess, the nature of what you will communicate there. And I think, interestingly enough, you can see the gender split is also much closer than what we would see on Facebook, which is quite. Actually, no, no, that's not true. I tell a lie. When you look at the numbers, they are actually similar. But either way, helping you to understand who it is who's connecting with you can help inform your decisions on what you do. And the funny thing is, you can actually also even see, just because this is how Google and Facebook all work, the other interests that people have. Because we're not trying to sell all of these other sorts of things, it's not worthwhile. But it could be helpful if the church is trying to think, what kind of content or what kind of things might connect with the other interests that people have in the church, and to say, if as a church you're doing stuff in this space that you're just not promoting externally in the community, there might be an opportunity there to do that. But again, this stuff is the kind of rabbit hole where you can just say, how far deep do you want to dig down? Yeah, so take it with a grain of salt and understand that the opportunity to do these things will always exceed probably your resources to do it. So you've really got to be selective about what you do. This is the other thing that's worth noting for the website. We can see that desktop users still for us at Cleveland represent a high proportion of our traffic, but mobile and tablet are not small. Um, I would suggest that this has a lot to do with the Redlands and the fact that so many people retire here, and that our context at the Redlands is quite unique in terms of demographics compared to a lot of other places around. And again, this stuff isn't a secret. If you just have a look at your census data, you'll get some pretty good insights as to those realities as well. But so what this is saying, at least to us, is that while it would be nice to connect with the folk down here in terms of mobile, that this older segment is still a significant portion of our web traffic, and they're probably the ones who are on desktop by and large. The other thing that I thought I'd mention is responsiveness for a website. So responsiveness is this mobile friendly thing I was talking about. So that means that when you're viewing the website on your browser or whatever, it'll be nice and spaced out like that. But a really quick way to test is actually to just grab the window and shrink it, and you'll actually see the website cleverly resizing itself in your browser automatically in a very clever way. There we go. So it's just jumped into its mobile view just now, and it's smart enough that if you squish it right in, it'll actually still reflow everything so that you don't have to scroll to the sides to make it all fit. So you can see that it goes from being a 2-column layout to a one column layout. All the content is still preserved, and it still looks great. And it's a bit clever about how it trims it all off. But a good example of that not happening is what happens at our website. So our website is using a plugin to make it mobile responsive. So if you visit our page on a mobile, you will actually not get something that looks like this. You'll actually get something that looks different. But that's provided by a plugin for WordPress at the moment, which means that if, for example, you do the little, is it responsive test, the answer for ours is no, not really. It kind of does a bit, but it's still a bit, it's not really good. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Whereas if you pull out your mobile, it will actually go immediately to that reformatted version, but it's kind of, because a plugin is what's providing the responsive behavior, it's not, we don't have as much control over what information is preserved when it goes from desktop to mobile. So for example, our website, when it decides to reformat itself to mobile because of our plugin, actually loses all our service times and all of that other useful information that you want. So, we really need to revisit this again. But part of our problem is less about how can we get more people to the church and more about how we deal with the ones we've got who are coming. So, yeah, there are other, for us at least, there are other. This is still kept very up to date. And still quite comprehensive, so it serves that purpose for us, which is important. But it is just important to be aware of whether your website still works or not on mobile, because a lot of older style church websites won't be responsive, so they just will be barely usable at all on mobile. The other thing that I thought I'd mention, just in terms of how we use technology and digital stuff, is we make very heavy use of Office 365. So we use that for all of our, calendaring, shared calendaring between the church, and I've actually got a personal calendar that's my stuff. We've got a communication one, ones for different people. And what's handy is you can actually have calendars from other churches and other stuff, which sometimes are updated, sometimes aren't, depending on the organisation. But so yeah, we use that. We use it also just to help keep track of our bookings. Whether we move our resource bookings into Elvanto may be something we do in the long term, but it's really handy just to have a visual representation of what's on. And what's clever about doing an electronic calendar like that is that you can actually quite easily do something like this at Vicky Point. So you can actually, this is Vicky Point uses Google Calendar, so that's just ties in nicely with Android. And what that means is that you can have it so that edits you make on a calendar that you might actually be using to do your, actual work, uh, can automatically be published onto a website like here. And what's handy then is that means that rather than having to double handle everything, you can actually just have one calendar that is sort of, let's say, authoritative. And if it's the one that you're actually using as a church to do your organising, it's handy. It does mean that you need to be a bit clever about not putting too much public information in there that you wouldn't want the world to have or see. Um, but it's really handy sometimes to be able to help people see all of what's going on while not creating too much extra work. The only catch is you need to make sure if you cancel something, you actually remove it. Otherwise, people will turn up at stuff and be like, "Oh, hey, what was this? You know, where was this thing that was supposed to be on?" And the see, Vicky Point's website is a bit newer than using a newer theme than ours at Cleveland, because in WordPress most of your responsiveness just comes from themes. So you'll see Vicky Point's becomes responsive quite nicely too. Um, and there you go. So it just sticks the little. It's nice actually, because sometimes when you embed stuff like that, it doesn't necessarily play and behave as nicely. But yeah, that all works. So that's proper responsive, not fake responsive. So I think that's probably a good overview of how all these tools work, and probably a good place just to help you to think a little bit more about what that actually looks like.